Shalom and welcome back to the Tea Table, my friends. I'm really glad that you could make it today. A special thanks goes out to our two friends, George and Janet in White Oak, who encourage me with the Tea Table teachings every time they see me. Thank you, my friends. Today's teaching is called The Right Question, and it comes from Psalms 34, verse 4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. As I was reading through Psalm 34 this morning, verse 4 really jumped off the page at me and spoke very loudly to me. Have you ever noticed how the right question at the right time can be such a lifesaver in a situation? Or how the wrong question at the wrong time can start you down the road to a disaster? Personally, I've found that a question can either be born out of wisdom or ignorance of not really understanding the circumstances. Thank God, sometimes the wrong question can have a very happy ending, but usually of no doing of your own. I remember when I was in my mid-20s and I was driving to work very early in the morning, and I was on a major highway in New York. The sun was just coming up, so the darkness was gone, but it wasn't completely light. And I was going a little over the speed limit. I looked in my mirror and noticed a red flashing light coming right up behind me. So I pulled over to allow the state trooper the opportunity to give me the speeding ticket that I rightfully deserved. This very tall trooper got out of his car and slowly walked over to my window. I noticed he had on his sunglasses, and in his hand was a booklet, which was probably a ticket book. And in his other hand was a pen, but he wasn't writing anything just yet. He was just looking at me through his sunglasses. I'm not sure why I said what I said, but it was the wrong question. I looked up at him and said, "Do you have one coffee, fries, and a cheeseburger?" It seemed to take forever, but in reality it took only a few seconds before I noticed a hint of a smile break his face. And with that he said, "Get out of here and don't speed again." "Yes, sir," I responded. As I drove off, I asked myself the question, what in the world is wrong with you? You could have really gotten into a lot of trouble and have gotten a big ticket. Thank goodness that officer had a sense of humor. A wrong question at the wrong time with wonderful results. How often does that happen? I believe questions should be asked, but I also believe they shouldn't be asked until you have an understanding of what's going on or the motive behind the situation. In Mark 11, verse 29, we are told Jesus replied, "I will ask you one question. Answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I am doing these things." When Jesus asked this question to the religious leaders, it was done because his authority was being challenged. And Jesus knew exactly what their motive was, and that was to trap him. A similar question was asked in Matthew 22, verse 35. With the wrong motive, one of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question. Obviously, questions are very important, and answers are just as important, but understanding motives and purposes of a question is also very important. John 8, verse 6, they were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. Thank God most of the questions we ask or answers we get are legitimate and not a form of entrapment. There are times when a question comes from a lack of understanding of the situation, which brings me to Psalms 34, verse 4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears. Oftentimes, our question is, Lord, are you there? Or, Lord, did you hear me? Or any question that is born out of a trying or a fearful situation and centers on, Lord, where are you in all of this mess? On the surface, it might seem like a legitimate question, but in light of Deuteronomy 31:8, do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. Or in Deuteronomy 31:6, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Well, based on these promises and many more faithful promises that God will never leave us, the question should not be, God, where are you? But what is it that I fear? You see, my friends, a question like, God, where are you? Puts the responsibility and or the blame on God for not being there when you go through hard times. Yet deep down we know that God's promises are much bigger than our problems. What happens is we find a situation similar to Numbers 13:33. And there we have seen giants, the sons of Anak, who are of the giants. Next to them, we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes. And that's what they thought too. At that moment, their problems were much bigger than God's promises. And so they felt alone, abandoned and deserted. It's no different than our friend Peter in Matthew 14:30. But seeing the wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. The right question could have ended the debate for Peter and for the men who thought they were like grasshoppers in the sight of a giant of a problem, as well as for any of us going through difficult times. The question becomes, are God's promises bigger than the problems, or are the problems bigger than God's promises? That, my friends, is the question that needs to be asked in any situation that seems to be much bigger than our abilities to deal with the situation. We are told in Numbers 23:19, God is not like people. He doesn't tell lies. He is not like humans. He doesn't change his mind. When he says something, he does it. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. If God said he will bring you through, then he will bring you through. If God said he will never leave you nor forsake you, then truly he will never leave you or forsake you. In order to ask the right question, you need the right background information, which comes from the right source. And God is the perfect source for every decision that you will ever have to make in your lifetime. God tells us that he gives us peace in all situations. There is no reason why we have to live in pieces in all situations. Trust God, for he is more than able to bring you through your darkest tunnel of life. And with that, I leave you with this. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha. Ye'er Adonai panav elecha v'honecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'yesemlecha shalom. The Lord bless you and protect you. The Lord cause the light of his face to shine upon you and to be gracious to you. The Lord turn all of his attention to you and give to you his peace. See you next week, my friends, at the tea table.